Good afternoon. We will call the finance meeting for the Pasquotank County Commissioners for Monday, April 19th, 2021. We're going to call it to order. Shorty, do we have any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that the agenda be amended to add item 9.8, 333 Windfall Boulevard property request by buyer to lower price.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Take a motion to accept the addition to the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. So ordered. Now, the first thing on our agenda is the tax releases and refunds. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept as presented.
Second? Moving properly second that we accept the tax releases and refunds. Any questions? All those in favor, let it be known by aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Second, we have, next thing on the agenda is because of the Albemarle Health Sciences Simulation Lab Capital Project, and who's going to start with that? Dr. Sidewell or?
You want to do the, Mr. Chair, you want to do the budget amendments?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I missed the budget amendment. Gary?
The first one is to decrease contingency for $34,844 and to increase maintenance buildings. This is for renovations at the South Neck Station for the EMS station. Second one is for Wichita Volunteer Fire Department. That's to increase revenue from ad valorem taxes for the year 2018. $13,029, and to increase maintenance equipment, $1,000, and maintenance vehicles, $12,029. And this is to appropriate funds for the service on the rescue tool, $905, and unexpected repairs on engine 50 and tanker 51, plus the air system for the trucks. The last one is for cooperative extension for increased revenue to state grants, $2,907, and to increase their grant expenditure line item for the Senior Health Insurance Information Program.
Okay. What we can do is we can take a motion on that, then we'll see whether there's any questions. Sherry?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the budget amendments as been presented by the finance officer.
Second? Moving properly second. That we accept the budget amendments. Any questions? Mr. Reed? Mr. Adams?
Do we have any quotes, do we get quotes for the renovations on Sound Neck?
Renovations on?
On Sound Neck, the Sound Neck part?
Yes, we did that. That's actually listed on the agenda, item number 7. We got quotes. I gave a estimated preliminary range at the retreat of $25,000 to $35,000 with the outside quote that bid came in at $47,720. I went back to staff and indicated we need to bring that number down. And so we're doing the bulk of that work in-house, and that gets that down from the $47,720 to $35,000, which was in the budget range.
Anything else, Mr. Adams?
I got a couple of questions on it. We can wait till we get item 7. That's fine.
Mr. Perry?
No, sir.
All those in favor, let it be known by aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And now we're back. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Come right forward.
Thank you.
Right there tonight.
So thank you for having me today. I don't have a dog and pony show for you today. You've seen that from me recently several times. I'm here at Sparty's invitation, and I know several of you have talked to him about me being here. I did want to point out that you have some documentation here from the college at your viewing pleasure. I was not planning to talk about those. I'm just here to thank you for your continued interest and support of our allied health and nursing simulation facility that we are hoping to plan and build in the coming years. So I'm here at Sparty's invitation, and I'm glad to answer any questions or follow the lead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I just add that the reason we placed this on the agenda is I had two commissioners ask to place an item on the agenda to indicate support. And with this request, there would be no immediate financial impact. The project's about 2 to 3 years away from being designed, and we would have to have design completed and bids in hand for financing, LGC approval for the financing. But if the board does support moving forward with this, then staff would bring back a plan for financing when the College of Albemarle moves forward with the design process. So really, this is on the agenda as the request of two commissioners to indicate support.
Any questions, Dr. Black?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this, moving forward for the board, supporting the COA's proposed science and simulation lab and capital project.
Second.
Moving properly second. Now, do we have any questions?
Mr. Perry, your thoughts from the COA board?
Yes, I think it would be a tremendous asset to our community, to support the project. So I think we need to support it and just look forward to it. The things that it will do for our community, for the students and so forth, and surrounding counties also.
Any other questions?
Just a statement, I think it's a great investment in this county's future.
Only, I mentioned it to Dr. Bagwell and Sparty, if and when we make the move of our MSA quarters, it'd be nice to have a place to put an ambulance over there somewhere. Just saying, if it were to happen,
Okay, anyone else? Dr. Blackwell, sounds like it's a very good project, and certainly it'll be great for our community, and we look forward to you moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you do for us.
Okay, all those in favor? All those in favor, did we make a motion? All those in favor of the motion, that be known by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Unanimous, ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for your support. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack.
Next thing on our agenda, we have the presentation of fiscal year 2019-20 audit. It's going to be done virtually by Greg Adams from Thompson, Price, Scott, Adams and Company, PA, who are our auditors. We'll get that set up momentarily.
Mr. Adams? Yes. Hi, this is Lynn. We are at your section of the presentation, and you want me to do the PowerPoint for you?
Yeah, that would be great. I'll just say.
Can you fire up some volume there, Lynn?
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, and if you'll speak loudly, because our system isn't real loud, then that would be great.
Okay, will do.
Yes, sir.
You ready for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Adams.
Good afternoon.
We have 6 of the commissioners here with staff, and we are waiting to hear from you.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Greg Adams with Thompson Price Scott Adams. We completed the June 30th, 2020 audit for the county. I'm just going to go over a few required communications. These are required each and every year that the auditor communicate with the board. So we're going to go through those. Then we'll have some of the key figures from the audit. And I'm sure Sherry will have a thing or two to add in also. The required communications. Our responsibilities under generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, OMB uniform guidance, and the State Single Audit Implementation Act require that we design the audit to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material error and in compliance with all government regulations. That was accomplished. There were no material errors. We are required to perform all planned procedures and have complete access to both management and required information. That was completed. Our work was not limited in any way. We are required to communicate any significant deficiencies in internal control that we discover during the audit process. We're going to go over those individually at the end of the presentation. Next. We're required to notify the board of any adoption or changes in accounting policies. For this fiscal year, there were none. Next year, we'll have a new GASB on leases that will affect the financial statements. That'll be next year. Management's judgment and accounting estimates. The two main judgments and estimates for the county are depreciation and allowance for doubtful accounts on accounts receivable. And those both were deemed to have been reasonable in the financial statements. Discuss and disclose any significant audit adjustments or unreported differences. There were none out of the normal course of business. You're already on the next page. Disagreements with management. We would communicate any disagreements on financial or reporting matters that would cause a modification of our report. So if we disagreed with Sherry on how to handle a certain accounting transaction, we would have to disclose that. There were none. Any consultations with other accountants or any consultations with any outside experts, actuarials, lawyers, any of that, there were none. Communicate any major issues that we discussed with management prior to our retention, prior to signing the audit contract. There were none. Any serious difficulties that the auditor encountered in dealing with management, such as unreasonable delays, unreasonable timetable, or unavailability of client personnel, we'd have to let you know about those. There were none of those. And communicate the existence of any material irregularities and or illegal acts determined during the audit. There were none. Next, well, you're on the slide. Here we go. This is a summary of some of the key figures of the audit. So for the cash for all funds, so the entire cash for all funds for the county on June 30th, 2020 was $40,579,559. And the fund balance for the general fund was $26,664,406. The available fund balance, or the portion that's not restricted, would be $18,290,406. So a percentage of fund balance available for appropriation, 18 million divided by the 26 million, it is 69%. 69% of the available fund balance is available for appropriations. In the general fund, the total revenues were $61,346,851. Total expenditures, $51,905,943. There was some other financing sources, uses, which was transfer in and some debt, which was $568,000. So a net change in fund balance of $10,008,908 for the general fund. Next is the analysis of cash and cash equivalents. So from the prior year, $29,512,578. And the ending balance that I spoke about on the previous slide, $40,579,559. Next. This is just total analysis of your total fund balance. So the fund balance, when we had that increase, went from $16,797,994 to $26,664,406 at year end. This slide is the analysis of the percentage of fund balance available for appropriation. We had to round it off at 69%. It's actually 68.59, and you can see that's up from 57% from the prior year. Next. This is one of the key statistical data that the LGC considers. It is the total fund balance to your general fund expenditures. So a portion, they want you to have a minimum of 8%, which is 1 month's expenditures. And you can see that our percentage, the way we calculated, I think Sherry does a slightly different calculation, but it's basically the same. 32.97%, up from 30.26% in the prior year. This slide is our tax collection rate. So last year, excuse me, we were 97.14%. This year, 96.71% for overall tax collection rate. Okay, so these were a few of the findings. The first one here is related to Medicaid, Medical Assistance Program. Next slide. Which we looked at, I think 60 files, and we found 23 technical errors discovered during our procedures. So no one was receiving benefits, there was no effect to eligibility, and there were no question costs, but minor technical errors in the Medicaid files and NCFAS, where documentation might not have been there, or there might have been a signature missing on a form, some stuff like that, so technical errors. Next. And we looked at 60 Medicaid applicants, so that's still the same finding. Next. So we just said files should be reviewed internally to ensure proper documentation. That was our recommendation. Next. That says you guys agree with the finding. Non-compliance with budget. We had an appropriation that was a line item that was over budget department. Next. And the county expended more for the occupancy tax fund and debt service department than was appropriated for in the annual budget. Next. Sherry agreed with this finding, and we just make sure that we're in the budget where it gets amended. Next. Within the special revenue fund, a disallowed expenditure resulted in a prior period adjustment. So if we have to materially change the prior year's financial statements, that's also a finding. So last year there was an expenditure in the E911 fund, the special revenue fund, that ended up being disallowed. So then that expenditure we had to make a prior period adjustment to show that disallowed expenditure. So that resulted in a prior period adjustment. So then that's a finding. And it basically, I think, was involved in the interpretation of what was an allowable expense and what was not. Next. That's the key figures and some of the findings that we had. So one of them Medicaid, one for a budget violation, and one for a prior period adjustment.
Okay. Jeremy, you have anything to add before we?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
Okay.
First off, the $10 million increase, I want to explain that increase in the fund balance. If you'll remember, 8.1 of that is the escrow funds. That is in the capital reserve, so that's not for normal general fund operating costs. So I wanted to clarify that. The other one is on the findings as far as the E911 prior period adjustment. It was the same project, but it took the E911 board 2 years to review the 2018 report. They reviewed the 2018 report and the 2019 report late, and it was the same project that was disallowed on both years. So that was that. As far as the occupancy tax being over budget, we have to send what we get, and that's all that was over budget. If you're turning the books to page 120, in honor of former Commissioner Meads and current Commissioner Meads, this is the page that Commissioner Frankie Meads always liked to see, and this is our debt. It shows how much of it has gone down from the prior year. It gives you a history of where we were and where we are currently.
Like building one school or building one capital project will push our numbers back.
Well, reduce that fund balance. And if you'll notice, on page 87 is the capital reserve fund. And I think there have been some questions in the past that the commissioners want to know exactly what those funds were allocated for. And so this sort of spells it out on page 87, exactly where those funds are allocated. For reserve. Any other questions or concerns for Greg or myself?
Any questions? Mr. Mead, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Lavin?
No, I did see where we've gone back and addressed some of the findings regarding, I guess, social services with the people there to try to make sure we complete all the paperwork properly. So that's good. And, you know, anytime they do find things like that, it's always good to try to, you know, make sure we address those. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Sherry, and to the rest of the staff here. But it really, we'll give it.
Thank you.
Mr. Overman?
I think good job.
Mr. Taylor?
One question.
Yes, sir.
What caused the tremendous gain between the 2 years, 19 and 20, balance?
The fund balance, it was
Fund balance, what was
the $8 million we received from the hospital and escrow funds
That's why,
went up, so, yes, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
No more questions, I guess we, entertain a motion to accept the audit report.
Sure, you got a certificate?
It hasn't come yet.
We got a motion, we got a second.
Second.
Moving properly second, we accept the audit report for 2019-2020. Any more questions? All those in favor, let me know by aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you very much.
You know, we appreciate it. We appreciate all Sherry's help too. She made it very work well. We appreciate it.
Wait, there's one question for Mr. Adams.
You mentioned something about GASB changing next year.
Yes, sir.
And what does that mean for us in our audit?
It would just mean there might be some adjustments made to the county's leases. I think Sherry knows about it already too. So it would just be maybe either capitalizing or not capitalizing, depending on the new definition of what a lease is for the county.
There has to be an analysis done of every single lease that the county has, whether we're paying rent or whether we're receiving rent, to determine whether it's an asset or liability.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next on our agenda is update on PESS operations and response to COVID-19. We got Kathy Ford here. It's good to see you, Kathy. I was on a Zoom meeting with Kathy a little while ago. On that Zoom meeting.
Good afternoon.
She made me feel real good because she had all the answers.
I did a lot of rambling that day.
Yeah.
Not sure if that was on the heels of a night spent at DSS or not, but I can say that this past Saturday night, we did not spend the night at DSS,
Okay.
as we did the past 2 Saturday nights before that. So that's been a good thing. So it's not fall today. I appreciate the invite. Not sure how to best explain how COVID-19 has impacted our DSS operations, other than to say that first I have to give kudos to our staff. They have showed up, they have turned out, they have done, and they have been dedicated and determined and followed through. And I cannot complain at all about that. And I appreciate every single one and all that they have done in answering the call that we have had. As a public-facing agency, we never once shut our doors, locked our doors, turned people away. It's not what we do. It's not how we operate. It's not how we've operated from day one.
There were some measures that we put in place from the beginning that we have continued to have in place. We have an outdoor drop box, which we appreciate having, which actually we will continue to have in place, which allows people who work after hours to be able to drop off information, applications, recertification notices, and so forth that we can receive at any time. We pick that information up daily and actually every 30 minutes throughout the business day. We also have information for people to receive in our front foyer area so that they can pick that up without having to actually come into the lobby. From the beginning, we were able to partner with the health department and work with screening people as they came in. Thankfully, we've had a reduction in foot traffic, and I think folks have just found that there are other ways to apply or find services or speak to individuals as they have needed to. In addition, the state has also put a lot of waivers in place and issued a lot of waivers from the Department of Health and Human Services. And they were really quick to react and respond to that in almost all of our programs. So specifically with our, there's been a lot that they've done on the front end and ongoing. Not really sure how we're going to see things on the back end. I think we're going to find some administrative burdens in cleaning up that and seeing that through. Specifically in our Medicaid programs, there have been a lot of waivers in those programs where we are not allowed to terminate during the pandemic unless there are certain criteria that are met. However, we are required to continue conducting reviews and making changes to their cases. Unfortunately, in both adult Medicaid and family and children's Medicaid, this has created an overflow of cases, which is almost equivalent to about what would be almost 2 caseloads comparable to what we currently have. We've got about 800 cases in family and children's Medicaid and a little over 100 cases in adult Medicaid, which if it were not for COVID-19, they would not be eligible or would have reduced benefits. As soon as the pandemic ends, the waiver that's currently in place, there will be a 90-day period in which we'll go in and make the necessary changes. All of those particular cases have been identified and noted as we're required to do so that we can keep a handle, and they actually require our touching those every 6 months as opposed to the required 12-month recertification period. So we are continuing to see to those and make sure that those cases are being assessed accordingly. In our food and nutrition services, we also have waivers in place. There are a lot of waivers in place as it relates to face-to-face interviews, and most of our eligibility programs require the in-person interviews, but the state has allowed the waiver of the in-person interviews and has allowed for telephone contacts and allowed for us to also accept telephonic signatures. This has been super great during crisis and leak, which is often the time when we have 100 people standing in line at a given time in the morning when those programs start. And so, of course, with social distancing and so forth, that has been great. Those programs also allowed for e-pass for individuals to apply online and submit applications by mail or call in, and it greatly reduced the need for the in-person visits. We also saw this year about a 25% increase in our energy programs from the individuals we saw last year. In total, with our crisis program, our low-income energy assistance program, and the additional pandemic low-income energy assistance program that was put into place this year, which is paid out to approximately 15 energy providers in our area. It was a little over $500,000 that the state appropriated for Pasquotank County citizens that we were able to administer. And probably for the most part, about 75%, a little more than 75%, went to the city of Elizabeth City as the primary utility provider. We've got 17 children in care. Thankfully, our courts have continued to meet in person, and we've been able to not hold up or have experience a backlog of cases as we continue to reach permanence for our children. And we are, however, experiencing deficits with our foster care system and meeting the mental health needs of our kids and the continuity of care for them when they're experiencing multiple disruptions during this time. Some of our older children, particularly, we have one in particular during this entire pandemic, unfortunately, for them and for the individuals and for our staff, social distancing has been very difficult. Thankfully, we were able to get dividers in the car. We've had a PPE appropriated, but we've been traveling all over the state of North Carolina to locate placement and a significant number of placement disruptions. And whenever it happens, we're on the road and going and making sure that things are taken care of. In adult services, we currently have 30 adult wards that we're overseeing and that we take care of and are responsible for. Business as usual in adult protective services. All of our trainings and our meetings are currently being conducted virtually by Zoom, various platforms. We are starting to have state reps come in person. Some of our executive board meetings are scheduled to resume in person. Not sure if that's going to change or not. And of course, our program monitorings, audits, and so forth have resumed, but all have been virtual. We've been able to gain some additional laptops with COVID funding, not enough to outfit our entire agency. And during this time, we've been working steady with record retention and just trying to be prepared for what Medicaid transformation is going to bring. And not sure we're watching legislation in the event that Medicaid expansion is upon us, which they are predicting in Pasquotank County, we could be looking at as many as about 2,500 additional individuals that would be coming onto our Medicaid rosters. So that is what's happening in social services world. So business as usual, but unusual, and we're just continuing to do what's expected.
Well, we certainly thank you for all the effort. You know, this is an interesting season for you and the staff.
It's been very
People
interesting.
doing a fine job. We're going to see whether any of the commissioners have any questions for you.
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to thank you for your work. It's a very, very important job you do, and I really appreciate it. It takes somebody, a special person to do that job.
Thank you.
It's very, very important to this community what you do.
Thank you. We couldn't do it without a lot of our community partners, without all of you all, without our DSS board support, and without a lot of others who help us to get through this. The health department's been very helpful when we've had to place kids to issue testing, to get testing, of course, expeditiously for some of our children for placement. So it's been a great partnership, and it's been very helpful. So some of our churches lately have been helpful too as well.
And I can imagine what you said.
Commissioner Levy?
I don't have any questions. I'll just echo Mr. Meads and say thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ortman?
I don't have any questions. I get the privilege of serving on that board, and I thought I had an idea of what they did before I got on the board, and I don't know how they keep up with. I don't know how they keep up with it before the pandemic, and it's just amazing to sit there and listen to Kathy Monthly tell us how they're still reaching everybody, and no one is going without services, and she's got staff over there that's just great county workers. Makes it look very good.
Okay. Mr. Perry?
I know pretty much what you do, but I'd like to know more about, keeping people in houses. I know a lot of people haven't rent. Are they actually, your program actually involved with the house rent and those kinds of things at this time?
We are not directly working with any of the programs where they are assisting with rental. Are you speaking specifically with River City?
Well, just any kind of support, like people people without oil and
No,
things of that nature.
and that was with regards to the energy programs that I made mention to, the crisis intervention program and the low-income energy assistance programs. That does assist with those heating resources, which may be oil, gas, or utilities. With rent specifically, unless they qualify for our work first, emergency assistance funds, and that's a very low amount that we can assist with towards that. And then they have to be able to maintain going forward,
Right.
and which is often very difficult for many. We usually partner or try to seek with Salvation Army or any other resources. Now, we have been working very closely with, we partnered with the Community Care Collaborative and United Way when they were in the developing stages. And of course, I understand they've been working very hard and work with the same individuals. So we often will partner with them to try to meet an individual's needs. We will try to assist them with this, and they may try to assist with another need that they may have. We also work closely with the housing program with River City for those who have been assisting with rapid rehousing. And we do have representatives who serve on the Homeless Coalition that I believe Trillium also has representation with as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
How is the 2,400 Medicare, Medicaid expansion going to impact you and your staff and the size of your building?
At this point, with our current caseload sizes, my anticipation would be that we could be looking at a need for as many as 4 additional staff, which could then mean an additional supervisor, given the current size of the units as well. I'm already nickeling and diming every little corner I can, and trying to clean out every little corner I can to put a desk in it. I had 2 student interns this past year. I had them set up in corners and workrooms because I just didn't have the office space. So to be able to offer an office space, I don't have. We've often gone through and looked at remodeling options for cubicles to maybe, where these individuals could go. There's that option or discussion about, I've got some file rooms that are large enough if I was able, I can't purge everything because with our record retention laws, there's a lot that cannot be purged. I have bits and pieces here and there. So,
What you're saying, you're out of space.
yes, sir. Unless you want to take in the lobby, or we look at other options.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to come in. One of the things that we're looking at to help in terms of space, and Kathy's looking at closely, is teleworking. That's one option she's looking at. And I think with some of the DSS eligibility jobs in particular, that teleworking may fit well with. And then the other aspect that would probably free up some space in terms of moving things out is the Blunt House as well. So those are a couple of things that are going to be able to, I think, provide some relief as far as space.
Still sounds like maybe we need to start doing some planning for expanding the social services department. For storage, kind of get some, that type of, at least start with some storage.
And another thing we were looking at is some exterior storage as well.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
And we want to certainly clean up and clean out what we can, because I do not want to store anything that could otherwise be rid of. And we're looking at some options there. And we're not sure what, and not putting all our eggs in one basket, but we're not sure what this particular house may have or be able to offer as it relates to storage options. So once we can get in and we know that, then we'll be able to get a better idea. Otherwise, our file rooms are large enough that we could potentially put a unit or a cubicle set up in there and have at least 6, I don't know about 8, but have 6 individuals in there.
Back to your comment on state representatives here doing audits. So how is that going? Because I guess, how are they doing it for the past year?
Our state, the state for the different programs, when it's in our economic benefits programs, because of all of those cases are in fast. So they are able to access the cases and pull the cases randomly through the NC Fast program and go and access the product delivery case through the NC Fast program and see what information has been uploaded or provided and documented in the NC Fast case. But now, and I apologize for not having some information. I wasn't aware about the presentation just before me. That was a little bit different. That information, I believe, was copied and uploaded and scanned to their secure format. What we have been running into with some of our different, and I can't speak to some of those technical eras, but what we have run into with some issues is that which I know you've probably heard about it from our previous director, but some of our NC Fast program tends to, we have a whole entire workaround for a lot of what we do. And so we have policy, and then we have to learn program and work around in order to fit the policy. So we just recently, we're in a rebuttal now over a technical error because the reviewer's upset because we used a form dated from 2011, but yet we have a program rep who's telling us, no, you use the one that's generated automatically out of NC Fast. So we did. So she's telling us, no, we did it in error. But those are both state representatives who are not on the same page.
So back to that follow-up on that, so when that was a discoverable, is that, why did we not call the auditor up and say, hey, look, this is how, to cure that so it wasn't a deficiency? Because I've seen this before in state policy, or one representative represents this versus the older form, that those discussions could be done, and that could have been removed as a deficiency in our audit at that time, if there was a clarification.
I'm gonna let
Share, right.
I'm gonna let Sharon answer that.
Please.
And then what Greg has said, because this is the first finding
Right.
that's been, and it's all related to what she's saying is NC Fast.
Right.
Has one, and he said just about every county in the state will have the same findings because of NC Fast. I don't know how you fix NC Fast.
We understand that, however, it seems to me like if she's saying she's using a 2011 form versus a current form, and, the auditor is catching this on every county, then it seems like the state needs to correct it, so it does not be a Gatsby finding or a county.
And that is actually a different auditor. The one I just made reference to is actually a state auditor, different program, not Medicaid, that was referenced there, but still NC Fast.
Right.
And what we do on those, we rebut. We put in writing and document why we believe that they have referenced or made that finding in error, and the error being that, based on policy versus program. So we try to fight it. We go on record trying to fight it, the discrepancy.
That's what I was trying to get to, where we are with that, and corrections for next year. Thank you.
Just to follow up on the storage question, are you able to digitize your records and files instead of storing physical?
We may be able to digitize at a cost.
Well, I'm just thinking if we're going to pay for storage.
Yeah. So much of in our record retention, it has its life expectancy, if you will, and so I mean, we would want to purge and get rid of
Before
what
you
we
got
could.
into that.
Absolutely,
Sure.
absolutely. And we did just like our adoption records, which you could never get rid of. We did just get a great, this is old-fashioned microfiche, and we are going to do a warm transfer of all of those cases and to Raleigh, and so that will at least free up a small area that, again, a nickel and dime area that we can use for desks. And but we are looking at every little bit we can.
Okay, all right. That's all I have.
It is certainly a process.
Okay, any other comments? Kathy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. Please pass that on to me.
Thank you. Will do. Thank you.
Okay, here we are here. Next, we own converting former South Neck Volunteer Fire Station to an EMS facility. See, there's no staff here.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just start, and then I'll have Jerry respond to some of the specific questions. But this was presented at the board retreat A lot of advantages to doing this. We've got way too many people at Station 50. We moved them down to the Sound Neck station. We're going to create a presence for public safety in the lower part of the county. Just helps us in terms of response time. It just makes a lot of operational sense. And so at the retreat, I provided a cost range of $25,000 to $35,000, and that was very preliminary cost estimates for that. And so the staff came back to me and with a cost of $47,720 and significantly higher than the original number. And so I said, hey, we've got to value engineer this. What do we have in here that we didn't have before? And they had gotten one quote from an outside vendor to do a large portion of the work. Vinny was working on another quote that was actually much higher than the Bradford quote. And then Jerry, when I spoke with Jerry, he indicated that not only with maintenance staff have the ability to do a big part of the work, EMS staff would be able to do as well. So that would get down the cost of it down to $33,520. And what I would recommend is a not to exceed $35,000 in case we run into anything that we didn't anticipate.
Okay. Jerry, you have anything to add?
One other thing in the world of getting quotes, we did get a third from a fellow named Stephen Murray, who actually lives out that way, and it was commensurate with Bradford. They were at 28, I think Bradford was. Stephen was at 27.7 for the same work. So we have a former maintenance director, several folks who are good with woodwork, and other tricks of the trade. Years ago, we built our training room that's on the far left-hand side of Station 50, and that was mostly done by EMS and county staff as well. So we're looking at doing that at Sound Neck and keeping that down to around $33,000 is about what we calculated for the whole project.
Okay. Thank you. Now, the recommendation is to approve to complete the renovation necessary to convert the former Sound Neck Fire Station to an EMS facility at a not to exceed amount of $35,000. So we could entertain a motion, then we'll.
Motion to approve the recommendation from staff, not to exceed $35,000.
Okay. Second. Yes, second. Moving properly second. Now I have a question. Commissioner Lee, any questions? Commissioner Riley?
I do have just a quick question. This board, not in too distant past, agreed to change its procurement philosophy to where once something was in the budget, it was no longer needed to be brought before the board. And we just kind of approved the budget amendment about 20 minutes ago, and now we're hearing the specifics of this project and reviewing the quotes, etc. So I think we may have put the cart before the horse, or maybe someone can clarify for me why we need another vote.
It was in the longer agenda, that's all.
Well, that's not a problem, we're going to shorten it, right?
No, before this meeting, this clearly wasn't in the budget. So, and that's the rationale. And we were just trying to time it out so that if the board decided to move forward with this, we have the funds in this fiscal year budget, we can time it out in the same meeting. So.
Okay.
Seems like we should have just flipped that, but that's.
Okay. Commissioner Overman, anything?
I had just a couple, I mean, the number, we all live in the real world, lumber prices are so high right now, and it's unfortunate that when a government seeks to employ parties, it's a little inflated because they know the government's going to pay the bill. I wish those figures were a little smaller, but I sure don't want to slow down this project. It's definitely needed. Small stuff, and Jerry at his party might can reflect this. It's going to maintain its integrity as a fire station, but are we going to change the name of it? You consider changing? Will it still be Station 6? Will it still be?
We're still going to
fire
refer to it
EMS?
as
Called Overman something? Or
we're still going to point it to EMS Station 6. Definitely it'll maintain at 6. And if you wanted to do, it can still be called the Sound Neck Volunteer Fire Department, or we can do Sound Neck Volunteer Fire and Rescue. that doesn't matter to us. Our station number is the main thing, so.
That's only because that community, and you know as well as
Oh, yeah.
I, if they see fire station's gone, EMS is here, insurance pops in their head, and why don't we have a fire station down here anymore?
Yeah, you can leave the volunteer fire department right out on Andy, stick Andy EMS or whatever
Or
on there.
change, I mean, I'm offering, like I said, call it South, whatever, fire and EMS, or so it still means maintain the integrity of fire. Because we have to keep the engine there,
It has to
you know,
be
it
there
has
for
to be
insurance
there,
purposes.
insurance and
Yes.
all. So that we don't have this backlog of, what, you took the fire truck out and you had an EMS, you know, just so we can maintain that, so people know, oh, it's still a fire station, but now you're getting also EMS,
right.
not just one.
So we're good with that.
That's all for me, thank you. Just one other thing, are we gonna have a soda machine down there? I heard some old stories about a soda machine.
I thought you said a sewing machine.
A sewing machine, hit the right button and it popped out a cold beer. I don't know that it was in the budget before.
Okay, no more questions? All those in favor of the motion, recommendation, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and so ordered. Thank you very much.
What was the time frame? Were you gonna jump on that?
We're gonna jump on that immediately, right,
It
guys?
was like,
Been
been
waiting
waiting
for the go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got one to try. I gotta tell you, you know.
They're, in fact, they're leaving right now.
Why are you still here? Well, it was just a little wet, and that roof needs to be resealed first, so I'll default to Vinny on that.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to, request to retire duty weapon and book bag for retired sheriff office employees. And I see that we have Major Walio here.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, hope everybody's doing well. Corporal David Meggs is retiring on June 30th after 29 years service. He started full-time with the county in 1992. We're requesting to retire his badge and duty weapon upon his retirement at the end of June.
And it is to be rendered as this, that would be no charge, right, for this?
Yes, sir, correct, by the current county policy. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation from the Sheriff's Department.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. We have any questions? 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 No questions? All those in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Pasquotank River COA boardwalk renovation. Say, I think that's 4. I got a blot on my sheet. I think it's 4.
Yes,
40?
yes, Mr. Chairman, it is phase 4. So we received an additional grant for phase 4, $89,925 from the North Carolina Public Beach and Coastal Waterfront Access Program, and that's for our COA boardwalk project phase 4. It's replacement of approximately 750 linear feet of 7-foot wide boardwalk decking and associated handrails, piles, and stringers in need of repair. We actually sent bid packets out to 5 vendors who do this type of work. We only received 1 bid from Sawyer's Residential and Marine Construction, and that was for $83,250, which is under the grant amount. I would recommend approval to award the contract to Sawyer's Residential and Marine Construction in the amount of $83,250.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation from staff to reward the second
moved and properly second.
for $83,250.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, and I probably can, Commissioner Meads had a question regarding the cost, and I requested detailed information from the vendor, and I haven't received that yet, just to let you know.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Meeks.
Yeah. I know we had a question with the concerns about the $35,000 we're spending with this EMS bill. But I've done some figures myself, and I would, wow, I don't know where to start. This is a lot of money here. And some people could say, hey, this is grant money, it's pretty much free money. I don't see it that way. I see it as tax dollars. And I see it as a huge amount of money for such a small project. And I am not in favor of this, absolutely not.
Okay.
And I would love to see the figures on this. The numbers I have are way off from the numbers I have here.
Is there a design spec for this project?
I don't have any detail, I asked Mark Powell, after I spoke with Commissioner Needs, I asked Mark Powell to get that information. He said that Ivan Sawyer was tied up, and he's gonna try to get it to me late this afternoon. I have not received that. I don't have the detail in terms of the cost, but I do have the construction specs on the project. Says section 1, replace all decking and railing, replace stringers and level boardwalk where needed. Included in the bid 500 feet of 2x8 stringers, remove all 4x4 curbs when there's railing. Section 2, replace all decking, stringers, pile caps, and curbs and piles where needed, and include in your bid 4x6 square piles, 4x4 curbs on boardwalk with 2x4 elevated curbs with 1 foot section of 2x4 spaced at 2. Dispose of all old lumber, timber, and piles. Construction specifications, above ground members to be treated ACQ .60 PCF. Above ground members shall be number 1 grade. Ground contact members to be treated as CCA 2.5 PCF. Provide grade stamp or plastic end tabs denoting grade and treatment. Screws, stainless steel ASTM type 304, 305, 306. Bolts, nuts, washers, hand dip, galvanized. Washers shall have a minimum outer diameter of 4 times the rod bolt diameter. Joist hangers, straps, hinges, post hangers, hot dip, galvanized ASTM AX53. Mark also indicated that the quote, I don't have anything as far as the time for the project yet because I don't have the detail, but it included the hotel rooms for his crew while we're there. He said he would forward the breakdown of costs as soon as he gets it. So.
Go ahead.
If I could, Jonathan, I'm looking at $111 a linear foot, and that's with disposal, and how they met the method of disposal. You know, it don't take too many 2x6s and 4x4s to make that number add up pretty quick, based on the pile themselves. 4 or 6
I mean, I went over here myself and I counted, and you know, everything he's speaking of, the treatment and everything else is exactly what I got quotes on, because that is exactly what the code is.
Why do we need to move on this today? My just question is it really be better for us to get the rest of the information?
We could hold on this until the next meeting, and I could include the detailed information in the finance agenda.
I'll just say this, and if it's agreeable to the rest of the board, I do consider Mr. Beats the subject matter expert on building materials and construction in-house for this board. So I mean, if he's got concerns about the quote provided, I'd love to see the detail, maybe table this if everyone's agreeable, and bring it back before the next meeting, just to make sure we're doing the right thing. That's all I have to say.
What do you think, Coach? Go ahead.
I'm for tabling, that's fine, but just so you know how they get to that number, it's not based on lumber prices. Public record is that grant figure. So then it's whoever puts in bids to be under that grant figure as close and be the low bidder. So you can put it off, but they know how much money's there for that phase. They can go right up to that number, and they're the bottom guy. In this case, he's the only guy. So you're not going to get a change in price, unfortunately, because they know how the grant procedure works.
That's exactly.
And starting the last one,
I mean, we've seen this for years. I mean, just like when we're trying to sell property in Windfall. You have a public meeting and you tell Sparty what price to go to, they already know what that price is and you're going to get right to it. So that's the whole deal with public record. So I don't know if it's going to change anything to John. bid on it, heck, he can just go up right up to the maximum and hope he's that guy, the only bidder, so. Unless you can put it out and someone were to rebid, but I don't even know if we can do that, since he's already bid and the bid opening is closed. And even if we work
We
in
can
start,
start
we
it.
don't have to.
Smarty, if you could bring back the last bid, because if you remember, we had that same question the last time we did it, where it's, they did give us a breakdown at the last construction section.
I'd love to see that.
I think they didn't they run a linear foot comparison or something to show what we had paid versus previous phases of the contract? Is that right?
This is in line with every other phase, so it's all of, and like Commissioner Overman said, I mean, it's, they know how much the grant is, it's the bid, I mean, and I'm kind of, one of the reasons why we aren't getting more bids is because they're so busy.
See, all the bulkhead guys are busy, I mean.
They're all busy. So,
This was asked the other day.
Yes.
And they have a.
Somebody that sees this number might not be so busy.
I don't know, there's 5 people, and they're all busy, I mean, and I've worked with 2 of them.
If I saw this number, I wouldn't be so busy.
Okay, so what do we need to, go ahead.
I wonder how many of us had a chance to see the project, see what we're talking about? You walked
Yes.
It's
I
a
was
good
there,
distance.
I was there 6
It's
days.
salt like water that they're talking about repairing the
No, you don't
boards.
have to use that extreme of a treatment.
So would they have to use treated them lumber?
Absolutely.
They would have to use treated lumber.
But there's a different treatment
Yeah.
for salt water.
It's- I walked it also, and it's not a short walk for some people, but I think we have to respect what he's indicating, but I know that, just like, you mentioned a minute ago, I know it's not gonna be something that you can just go down and make a decision right quick about how it's going. So it's going to be a lot involved in repairing it, so.
Can I suggest that we do, put it on the table right now, and let's clear up the questions first. Is that okay? We need to,
If we want to delay, table it like John said, until we get the specs, while he's the only bidder, I think that's reasonable. Then we can look at them, like say, may not change anything because they know what the cost of the job is. And they're gonna make good money because of the working conditions of working on water. So you probably won't see a lot of difference, but at least we'll have those specs in hand to be able to kind of put our eyes on it.
okay. Do we need to withdraw the motion?
Was there one?
Just make a motion to take it.
Delay action.
Motion to delay.
Should I have a motion to delay action on this item?
I'll second.
Moving proper second, that we delay action on this one. We know which one it is. Talk so long.
On item number 9.
Item number 9, okay? Any questions? All those in favor, let me know by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All opposed, nay. Motion carries, so we're going to delay this one until we get the additional information. Now, we are at closed session for our hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
9A.
I forgot the one item. Go right ahead, go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 333 Windfall Boulevard, that was the property that the board approved at the last meeting to initiate the upset bid process. The upset bid process for the $123,000 purchase price cleared at 5 p.m. today. The New Love Fellow Church has now requested that the county lower the price by $13,025 to replace the roof. That's all plywood and shingles. Benny Freeman's went out and took a look at the roof. There's no indication that the roof is leaking. There are some shingles that may need to be replaced. But at this point, that would lower the price to $109,975 and require another upset bid process. I recommend the following: deny the request to lower the sale process to $109,975, return the church's deposit, and lower the list price from $159,000 to $139,000. I talked with Alex Rich. I do think we have it overpriced, but I think at $109,750, at $110,000 basically, we can get more for that property than 110,000. And this is, you know, with the church, there's multiple prices that we come in at, and we keep getting lower every time. So at this point, I recommend denying.
Okay, let's do it the other way this time. Let's entertain questions first. And then we can talk about whether we're going to vote for the recommendation. Let's start with Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, I've looked at the property, the roof replacement. I can't see it. I mean, I agree with the county manager.
All right, just a question. The church was asking for a concession of 13,000.
They wanted us to pay for replacing the entire roof, which shingles, plywood, just a complete roof
And you
replacement.
estimated that at 13, or what?
No, they got a bid. They got a bid for 13,000, and then Vinnie actually got a bid to replace shingles and potentially some plywood, and it was like 7,000. But once again, we started at 159, and then we keep kind of going down, and now we're at 110, and I think that's too low, in my opinion. I mean, the board could counter with somewhere in between if that's your will.
What was your, all right, so
Where do we end up at?
that's where I'm going.
We're at
I think you're telling us to take more off than the church is asking us for. That's maybe I got the numbers confused. Can you recap that?
No, we're at 123,000.
Okay.
And the church is asking us to take off $13,025.
All right.
So that would get us down to 109,975, and that was from original list price of 150, so $50,000 less than the list price. So, and I think our list price is high, but it's not that high.
Do we have any due diligence with, I know a home inspection would be required for a home.
Right.
Have we had anybody look at that? In other words, what caused them to have this?
I would get, I guess they got a home,
Okay, so
I guess they
look at
had
it.
an inspector to look at it. And, you know, we haven't had any indications that, you know, there were no apparent roof leaks at all. Vinnie took a look at it, a few shingles missing, and you know, he got an alternative estimate that was about, it was $67.98. So,
Anything else, Commissioner? Okay.
Make a motion that we follow staff's recommendation on withdrawing the offer, returning the deposit, relisting the property as stated.
We move in proper second. Any more questions?
Now, would that change, let's see, if they say their mind for good, does our action here change that?
When Alex called me, I told him that I was going to recommend to the board to deny. And so he got back with the church, and they said that they would not pay 123. So I said, I cannot speak for the board. I can speak of what I'm going to recommend, which is deny.
I didn't want you to call and say, 123, nothing, it's okay, we'll take 123, and we've already moved to put it back on the market.
Right.
Okay.
We recommend to deny. We got a motion and a second. Any more questions? All those in favor, let them know by aye. All opposed, nay. All opposed, nay. Now we're ready to close session for first, MCGS 143-318-.11A3. Motion going to close session.